Nope, he's a total joke and a laughingstock, and here's why. I will be explaining my views and how they have evolved over time. It's early March 2020. We're hearing about the rapid spread of this thing. At this time, I was questioning its existence. No, I did not believe in the 5G nonsense. I work in IT for a living. I'm not that stupid. I would ask these questions. Do you know anyone who has it? No. Do you know anyone who knows anyone who has it? No. Have you seen it? No. Have you had it? No. Well then, what's going on here? That was my stance until the first lockdown, and then some of my friends caught it. I thought, okay, this is real. This isn't time to fuck around. I'm completely against the idea of people being locked in their own homes, and this is going to cost the earth, but you know what? 3 weeks to flatten the curve. Let's do this. 3 weeks turns into several months. Everywhere is shut, but the borders are still open. If I was Boris, I would have shut the borders, because at the end of the day, we are an island nation. Yes, I realise this is going to make me sound like a tyrant. Boris should have made it so that the only thing crossing the borders was freight. No one comes into the country and nobody leaves it. But he didn't do that. Summer 2020, everything opens up again. Eat out to help out on. But we've still got some restrictions. Cases are at an all-time low. Deaths are at an all-time low. But then winter last year comes and we're threatened with another lockdown. By this point, I'd seen Boris and I'd also seen Labour too flouting the restriction. They weren't exactly taking it seriously, but they were more than happy to impose them on us. The second lockdown really pissed me off, especially when it turned out a death counts as within 28 days of a positive test, which could have been everything, as Sky News pointed out. And by the time the second one had come down, obviously Christmas was more or less cancelled, we were all locked in our home, and all I could think about at this point was the delayed cancer treatment and all the mental health problems that are going to happen. Not to mention the printing of money because of furlough. We haven't felt the effects of this yet, but when we do, it is going to be catastrophic. Then the vaccination rollout happened, and finally we could get back to normal. Once the vulnerable, the elderly and the sick are vaccinated and protected, we can get back to normal. But then Boris kept on moving the bar further and further. He seemed very keen to get to 100%, which is a little bit sus. July comes, everything is open again. Freedom at last. But the propaganda machine kept on going. Everything was fine until around October, and that's when it started kicking into overdrive, where suddenly we are shitting ourselves over cases. But it was never about the cases. It was about the deaths. It was about making sure the NHS didn't get overwhelmed. And then we found out what I'd been saying to a lot of my friends for a very long time, but nobody believed me. Boris had been flouting his own restrictions, and so had everybody else, as early as 2020, when knowledge of this virus was still very limited. And instead of being a conservative and a liberal, and just coming out and admitting that he fucked up and immediately removing all restrictions, he decides to double down. And while all this is going on, we have an opposition who is just towing the line. An opposition whose position is essentially, we agree with everything Boris is doing, but he's not doing enough. These restrictions are one rule for me and one rule for thee. Boris and Starmer are cunts.